Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies, back inside Eford Studios. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Print management, document management, get everything you need to the cloud and save money in 2025. That's crucial for your 2025 goals, Joe.
I did my one podcast a year without you. Got it out of the way early.
Only one? Big thanks to Dimitri for filling in the last two shows.
I know.
He did the mailbag on Friday, and he was here yesterday.
He got the people going on Friday. He got me going.
It was what you know me, man. I don't even remember what we did last show.
Yeah. So, when he was like, "Do you know what? You sound like such a loser," when you were talking about like how NC State should like actually remember the spring and be happy.
It's like be happy. Like the people who were calling in about like I'm wondering if it was worth the trade. Like,
yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
What is wrong with you? But that's SEC brain.
I know. So I was giving him a hard time.
Just like you've got gambler brain when you drop the softest take of all time when it comes to, I don't want to see snow in my football games. Which, that actually would have made the Ohio State-Notre Dame game a hell of a lot more entertaining if we're being real. Although it did get interesting late. It got interesting late.
Thanks to Ryan Day.
And Ryan Day, when he was going to turtle mode, I give him credit. I don't know if it was his call or if it was Chip Kelly's call, but he's like, you know what? You got to respect Ryan Day.
We have the best player on the field.
What should we do in this situation to break this game open and really just put the nail in the coffin? What should we do here, Joe?
Maybe throw it to your best player.
Hey! So there you go. So congratulations to Ohio State. I know we got a lot of Ohio State people who listen to the podcast. I'm not here to yuck your yum. In fact, I'm here to present to you. And I'm going to give credit to Tony Petitti, man. He knows how to get you talk about getting the people going. Okay. Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, after the game, dropped this banger from Ross Dellinger on Twitter. Big Ten commish, Tony Petitti. Quote, "That's the greatest run in college football history." End quote.
Oh, meaning Ohio State's playoff run?
Well, let's think about this. They're not an undefeated team. So right off the bat, people are going to be like, that's invalidated. Look at Michigan last year. They went 15-0, right? Or look at some of the greats to do it in the past. You've got LSU, you got Auburn, you got 0-1 Miami. There's any number of USC. There's any number of instances where you can bring it up because they went undefeated and Ohio State didn't. However, this is why I think it's an intriguing argument because Ohio State's two losses were a 1-point loss to Oregon back on October 12th. Was it 32-31, I think was the final score. So a highly competitive game. And then, of course, you've got your Michigan loss, which gets to another topic from this game. Table that, because that's the part that infuriated me, but we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
So those are your two losses. But along the way, they beat 6 of the top 8 teams by the final ranking. So they beat Penn State back on November 2nd, Indiana, Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and then Notre Dame. And they pretty much dominated in all those games along the way, right down to the championship game against Notre Dame. I mean, I turned it off and I started watching the Canes. And of course, the Canes blessed us with, well, guys, why do you do this against bad teams? Why do you do this? Great to see Ferdy back, but why do you do this? So anyway, we got interesting late. So I do think this is an intriguing point in that when you stack it up, what Ohio State had to do to win the national championship and who they beat along the way in terms of those final rankings, it is worth a discussion. I am not here to dismiss it outright. I actually think it's interesting because they are the first to do it. And it wasn't like they got bracket luck, Joe. They beat some freaking teams along the way to do it.
Two things. Number one, interesting that, and Reese Davis pointed this out in real time.
Yeah.
The format changes in 14 to 4 teams. Who wins it? Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
That run was actually more impressive than this one.
Okay.
If we're being honest. The format changes from 4 to 12. Who wins it the first year? Ohio State. Who has the highest budget in college football? Who has the highest commitment, not only financially from their institution, but NIL? Oh, that is wild. Oh my God. That's amazing. That's number one.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's number one. Number two, I thought what was interesting about this Ohio State team that became clear every step of the way. They were the only team in the country with more than one difference maker on offense.
Okay.
Every other team, whether it was Arizona State, Boise State, Colorado, you could argue has 2, had true, none of the elites had true difference makers. Texas, the quarterback, you'd argue, would struggle at times, right? They didn't have those wow you skill players. Ohio State had wow you skill players. They have 2 NFL running backs. They have 3 NFL receivers.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not even talking about the offensive line. I'm not talking about the quarterback.
That's fair.
Okay. They were really the only elite team this year with those Nick Saban, Alabama type, Dabo Sweeney, Clemson type playmaker, difference makers at the skill positions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I would dismiss this as the greatest run ever, because I think the teams that they mostly beat were good.
Sure.
And were good for this year. But they weren't. It just seemed like they were playing. And again, this is a function of their payroll, right?
Mm.
Like you wouldn't look at the 98 This is the equivalent of looking at the 98 Yankees and being like, man, what a great run.
Yeah.
You know, like they beat the Padres in the final.
It's like looking at Duke basketball with Mike Krzyzewski and going, look at those plucky upstarts, right? Or, when Roy was running hot at Carolina. I mean, look, Carolina's going under the radar, man.
Yeah, different things though, right? You have a war machine. A war machine does not, like Chip Kelly losing going back to Oregon. I would be embarrassed.
Okay.
And I think he acquitted himself subsequently
in the follow-up.
But I would be embarrassed that I went back to Oregon and lost the way that they did.
It's the Michigan game that is the most embarrassing in that, to all you just said, we got this war machine, but Ryan Day insisted, no, we are not going to win this way. No.
You called me soft.
So I'm going to show you. And then he ends up looking soft by looking super, super confused at the end of the game when there's a freaking brawl breaking out. Like, oh my God, what happened? What happened was you got galaxy brain and you lost the game that you should have won.
Yeah, you had the skill. Now,
yes.
I will point out to this day, that team in 22 with CJ Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr. and
so
all the other first round picks. I'm like,
these are two conversations. These to me, this is what I find it interesting. These are two separate conversations. I think you and I are both in alignment that 01, that Butch's last year that didn't win. And then Larry Coker's team that did win.
That's
in
the best
Miami.
team of all time.
Pound for pound, might be the greatest team of all time. At Miami.
All time.
But then you start bringing up that 2019 LSU squad. Okay.
Best offense of all time. Yes.
And then you're bringing up 22 Ohio State. Is this even the best Ohio State team?
No, it's not.
Right. So I think that. So I'm with you in that. When you're looking at the roster, I can point to other college football teams in the history of college football over the last 30 years and go, nah, I'll take that team over this team. That's the beauty of college football arguments.
That's what we have them for.
That being said, this is where we get into the makeup of the college football playoff and who they beat along the way. These were name teams. This was not NCAA tournament bracket luck that gets you to the championship.
Right. Virginia 2019.
Right. Yeah, I know. I mean, hey, man, they're feeling it right now. Joe, they're feeling it.
Sorry.
They're still kind of
it was a reflex.
I know. I get that. So the whole bracket luck is real did not apply to Ohio State.
No, it did not.
So that's
they
why
beat who was put in front of them, and they were the best. They had no favors with their draw either.
Now, here's what I'm not for. This is what I am not here for. Okay. And that is the apologizing that is taking place for Ryan Day when the calls were coming in from the house, inside the house in Columbus. Okay. So let's start with Nick Saban. I find Nick Saban fascinating here, right? So he's on the college football game day set at ESPN, and here's what he has to say about Ryan Day and Ohio State.
And I think it is absolutely ridiculous that Ryan Day has been criticized the way he has. Having been a coach, having coached at Ohio State and lived in the state for 12 or 14 years, I'm telling you, when the fans are negative and the media gets negative, it affects so many things. You got to give the guy credit. He built the roster. He's built the roster for 3 years, and it's gotten better. His coaches have made the players better, and they made a lot of improvement, and they've overcome adversity, especially in the Michigan game. So we should be giving the guy credit and being positive, because every time you're negative, it affects recruiting. It affects everything that you do, and he's been able to overcome the naysayers and still get to the national championship game. And win or lose, I think that guy deserves respect.
Okay. Nick should know better, because you tell me how things are going to go on the Paul Feinbaum show if you lose to Auburn 4 years in a row. 4 years in a row. You tell me how that's going to go. You don't think it's going to get negative? You think they're going to go to that press conference with your Coca-Colas all around the podium and be like, well, guys, I mean, we are still contending for, doesn't matter. You lost to freaking Auburn 4 times in a row. And in the case of the Ohio State-Michigan game, you lost in a game that was very easy to win if you didn't go Galaxy Brain, okay? And this adversity crap, okay? This is where we get to the 98 Yankees comparison that you just brought up. And this comes to us from Kirk Herbstreit after the game. He's almost caught Van Pelt. I know when it comes to Herbstreit, it's a little different. He was an Ohio State quarterback. He was at a time at Ohio State that wasn't exactly running hot. Wasn't like he was beating Michigan either when Herbstreit was the quarterback back in the early 90s. And he got understandably emotional.
Oh, don't start with me, man. I'm a little emotional. I'm just fired up for these guys. When I call these games, I'm incredibly objective. And I love all these Ohio State teams, but this team, because of what they went through to get to this point, you're just happy,
What did they go through exactly?
Well, you might be dismissing the intensity of the Ohio State fan base.
I'm not dismissing it, actually.
In this sense.
These are things that you know.
But in this sense.
Okay.
Like you don't know it until you live it. I'm not suggesting I've lived it.
Fair.
We're both friends with Mike Archer, right?
Yeah.
And you know the intensity. Let's put the intensity of NC State football at what? A 4 compared to the 11 of Ohio State?
Yes.
So Mike Archer will tell you the story of one of the seasons where they give up a bunch of yards in a game, and the next day somebody put a for sale sign on his front yard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, Mike Archer was forged in the fires of LSU.
Right.
So
this gets to Dimitri's SEC brain. He's like, Ed Orgeron wins a national championship.
Yeah.
Get the hell out, bro.
So Mike Archer shrugged, but that's NC State. And when you're going through that, or your wife's going through that, and your family's going through it, and I suspect this is where Herbie's getting it from, the family side. And now that he's got 9 million kids, none of them play for Ryan Day, by the way.
It's personal for Kirk Herbstreit because remember, he moved from Columbus because exactly
in part because of that. Because they didn't embrace, the way that he was talking about his program.
Yeah.
So I get that part of it, like you're going through something, but it's also self-inflicted. Like, don't lose the Michigan game when you're a 3-touchdown favorite.
Man.
By the way.
So that's what I'm getting at when you say what they've been through. What you've been through, again, I'll say it again. The calls were coming from inside the house.
And God bless Saban for sticking up for Ryan Day. I get
coaches
that.
are going to stick up for coaches.
I get that. But that's old football brain. What recruiting? What are you talking about? You think Caleb Downs who you paid, by the way, to get to Alabama? Do you think he magically went to Ohio State this year because of message boards or recruiting visit?
They were listening.
I need all of these coaches to stop and all of these recruiting websites to stop going back to this BYU kid. Oh, I'm going to BYU because they have a coach who worked in the NBA.
Yeah.
And he's going to prepare me. And it's, what are you talking about?
No joke.
You're getting $5 million to play basketball. Caleb Downs is getting a bunch of money to play football, as is the freshman receiver. Speaking of people I would go after and offer a shit ton of money to.
Yeah.
They're all getting paid, man. That your old brain of what mattered and what was recruiting and being negative.
How Tim Hall talks about these things on the Fan up in Columbus. That's ultimately what matters.
Just stop.
Now,
but he does deserve credit. I think the hardest game that they won was the Tennessee game, the very first playoff game. Back in that stadium, we've been there and we've been in an atmosphere like that before.
Oh, yeah.
Where all of the pressure is on that team and you have to win a certain way. Not only did they come out and win, they won in a big, big statement way that fed them and fueled them for the rest of this playoff run. So I'm not dismissing the quality of this championship for Ohio State. There have been much better Ohio State teams. The Big Ten commissioner, I would have had more respect for him if he came out and gave us we run this shit now. Michigan last year, Ohio State this year, we run this shit now.
It is interesting that you bring that up because there is look at the teams that were there. And as you bring up Michigan last year, this whole idea that nobody wants to go up to Michigan, nobody wants to go up to Ohio State. It's too cold. The recruiting sucks. Here's the sell. The SEC is dominant. Well, look at who was in the college football playoff Final Four and things like that, right? And yeah, I'm sure SEC folks are kind of sweating right now. But that intensity, by the way, was illustrated during the inauguration on C-SPAN, right? Again, these are all things that Nick Saban should freaking know. So, mind you, there's an inauguration taking place. C-SPAN is airing this. This was by the college football subreddit. And this was the call to C-SPAN during the inauguration.
I'm a bit more disappointed in the selection committee for not picking Alabama for the college football playoff finals, and instead picking inferior teams like SMU and Indiana. Truly dark times in America.
Okay. I love this C-SPAN guy. It's like, oh, crap. All right, time to move on. John Oliver does an entire bit on Last Week Tonight where he goes through these just completely unhinged C-SPAN calls that take place. But that being said,
wait a second. Do we get credit for C-SPAN taking phone calls during an event?
Yes.
Or after an event?
During a live event? Yeah.
We do, right?
We get credit for that. We invented that.
You're welcome, C-SPAN.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Now, about the selection committee and who was in there. He brought up SMU. We're going to get to that in a second, but I want to tell you about Keller Williams because we're about to get into the ACC. And speaking of Galaxy Brain, Jim Phillips might need to log off, the ACC commissioner. But what you need to do is you need to log in to trianglencommercial.com. Call our friends at Keller Williams Commercial. The Donnelly team's got you, 919-616-8681, Joe.
Yeah, Julie and Brian, they can help your business, whether you're looking for a smaller space, looking for a more convenient space, Cary, Apex, downtown, wherever. They've got you covered. Give them a call, 919-616-8681. Ask for Brian or Julie and tell them the OG sent you.
Now, I am coming out of my hockey tournament brain, so I was catching up on some things, and I see this headline on ESPN, and oh no, I got the wrong story up right now. Let me pull it up on the right story. This was from Andrea Adelson, our friend from ESPN. ACC will weigh changes to its title game, commissioner says. I'm like, well, okay, interesting. How's this going to work out? This is from Sunday. The conversations are a result of the expanded 12-team college football playoff. Phillips said the ACC could consider giving its regular season champion a bye and have the teams that finish second or third in the league standings play in the ACC championship game. Well, you're going to have to call it something different than the ACC championship game.
Well, we specialize in that.
What should we call this, Joe? If the second and third place teams participate in the ACC championship game in Charlotte, which isn't actually for the championship, but for second place, we got to workshop this. Can't call, well, there's another idea that we do have a name for because we already see this with baseball.
Yes.
He said the other possibility is having the top four teams play on the final weekend of the regular season. First place versus fourth place, second place versus third place, with the winners playing the following weekend in the ACC championship game. Joe, we're here. We've arrived. We have the ACC football jamboree. Let's freaking go. Now, one idea confuses me. Very confused about having an ACC championship game with the second and the third place teams and the winner not participating in this. But I don't hate a semifinals or a bracket buster weekend that sets up an ACC championship.
Yeah,
I don't hate that.
I'm the opposite.
Okay.
I don't know how a mini playoff before you go to a playoff helps you.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't think it does. Because if they expand the format to 14, I don't know how any of these things help you. That's the other part of this. I think, and I applaud Jim for trying something different here.
Of course.
And expanding this idea and getting this idea out there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that first. We're always critical of him when he doesn't. When he kind of hides and doesn't make his ideas public. So I like this. I like the thought process here. But I think this would apply more of a 12-team format, and we know the 12-team format is going to change. So I think it's hard to sit here and plan for what could be when you don't know what is.
2026 will be,
because
the meetings coming out of the weekend indicate that there will be no tweaks to the current format, and there shouldn't be. We don't have enough data.
Yeah, I mean, and it's only one more year of it anyway.
Yeah.
So but the way I look at this, though, is I like this idea of a regular season champion, particularly in a year like this.
Okay.
You're sitting here saying to SMU, fine, you won all of your games. And no one else did. Fine. We're going to bring the second and third place teams in and give them a chance to play into the. If you're saying I'm saying if there's two automatic bids.
I got you.
You're saying our regular, and it has to be this clear of a scenario, though.
Yes.
It can't be three teams with one loss.
No.
It has to be a scenario that you had this year. How many times are you going to thread that needle?
Which is why I don't hate the four teams, because with unbalanced schedules and the possibility of a bunch of one-loss teams and nothing so clear.
Yeah.
Well, that's when you get to the jamboree portion of it. But here's the simple solution. This is overthinking. Okay. This is overthinking. The ACC's problem is that the right teams are not winning. Straight up, end of discussion. If Clemson, Miami, Florida State, and Virginia Tech are the ones, and we'll throw North Carolina there as the lurking brand that would be accepted.
If you could refer to them by their proper name, I would appreciate that.
And that would be what?
Sleeping Giant.
I'm sorry, you're right. The Sleeping Giant, my bad. The Belichick boys. if you have the right teams, because that's what this is about. It's as simple as this. This is Big 12 brain. Remember, when Texas was not the one that was winning, Oklahoma was not the one that was winning, it was the wrong two teams that were winning, TCU and Baylor. We went from marketing, and I shit you not, this is a real thing, go back and look it up, right? We're not memory holing this. The Big 12's marketing push at that time was one true champion. And the reason why they said they had a one true champion, because they were built at the time to have a true round robin scheduling format. So whoever got spit out, we played all these games, we got the best record, we are the champ. And in a freak out about the champion, about the college football playoff and everything else, to put them in the best position to get a team, they went, oh, no. We have co-champions. You never would have done that shit for Texas or Oklahoma.
No.
Never. So what it comes down to is Jim Phillips can come up with all the formats he wants, but it's one true thing that happens here. That is, you need Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, and I guess Carolina's the fifth to actually produce on the football field. This is no disrespect to SMU. This is no disrespect to Georgia Tech. No disrespect to Duke. No. College football only works if the right teams are the ones that are winning. And unfortunately for the ACC, the right teams are not winning. This is not that hard to figure out.
Housekeeping.
Thanks to Inovana, communication is key. They texted me this morning, Joe, that they were on the way to the house. Weird. What do you mean weird? They come to the house every 2 weeks, bro.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Inovana.
They're not at the house every other day. That's not how it works. We got Bomani Jones at the Rialto. Been hearing from some people that are excited to be here on January 31st, therialto.com. The Basketball Jones, Tyler Hansbrough is going to be there. Marcus Ginyard in the house. Lavelle Moten from Central is going to drop some basketball stories. We're going to be there essentially to warm you up for the real act that is Bomani Jones. And tickets, again, on sale right now at therialto.com. I did put in a rush order for stickers, so we can hand those out.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to give out a
Sell
baby?
them.
Do we want to give out a baby bottle of something, maybe?
We'll do that Thursday. We're live, OG Butcher's Market live at the Breeze Through
Yes.
on Thursday. So let's do that.
All right. Very cool.
21 plus, obviously, to win a baby bottles of the Blantons, thanks to our guy, Ken.
Yes, we will have to card you when we do this. Yes, big thanks to Breeze Through. We will be there on Thursday. What time are we doing this again?
This is at 5:00.
Okay.
We're right across from the arena. At 7:00 that night, there is an event at the arena.
Yes.
But our two things are not related.
No, we just happen to be there.
There's not a pre
Nope.
involved.
Nope.
We did not start the fire.
Nope.
So it's definitely not that.
That's what we're calling it. Definitely not what you think.
Yes.
It's definitely not
the
what you
Down
think.
Easter Alexa.
Yeah, I like where you're. Sometimes we go to extremes with these. Sometimes we go to extremes with these naming concepts. So yeah, 5:00 Breeze Through. Big thanks to them. Check them out, breezethrough.com. Get some coffee. Get some road sodas on the way to whatever event is happening at Lenovo Center later that day. Big thanks to our guy, Matt Davis, over at State Farm. He's sitting pretty. Duke's looking good.
I asked yesterday.
Duke's looking good.
Are they the machine?
They might be the machine. In terms of machines and saving you money, Matt Davis and his folks at State Farm, they're a machine when it comes to saving you money on home and auto. Check them out, InsureGarner.com, theoginsurance.com. Joe Giglio is a machine when it comes to custom order rowback hoodies, apparently.
You like that one yesterday?
I enjoyed that Garner one yesterday. I'm going to need...
we could do this something for your junior team.
Can we do a little junior Canes action?
We can.
All right. We have to... Yeah, we could do
It's
that.
not for public sale, so
It's
we
not-
can even
it's
use
not.
whatever logo you'd like.
I mean, I got to get something for my guy Shane, the head coach. He got me this Rhea Ripley shirt.
That is
I mean, look at that thing. I
amazing.
love this shirt. We'll talk about Rhea a little bit later
Mommy
on.
always comes out on top.
Exactly. So Rowback always coming out on top. Check them out, rowback.com. Use that promo code OG20 to save 20% off your order. And speaking of all the time that I spent out in Garner, Hometown Realty, they're based out of Garner, but they can take care of you all across the state of North Carolina. They've got the inside looks on homes in the Triangle, new construction. You can check them out online at myhtr.com. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline is Andrew Jones of Tar Heel Illustrated, who I'm slightly jealous of because right now in Chapel Hill, there is never a dull moment between basketball and football. Andrew, what's going on, man?
What's going on, guys? Not a dull moment at all. There's Every time you turn around, there's something interesting going on that sometimes you can report, sometimes you can't.
I got to imagine the boards are popping right now.
I've never seen football message boards on our site like they are now. Even at their angriest, the volume wasn't like it is now, because there's a great deal of optimism, but there's a couple of dudes in there that are saying, hey, wait, everybody, pump the brakes. Some of this doesn't seem right. So let's let it play out. And I have chosen in many respects to stay out of those conversations because there's some craziness to it, but also I can't offer a lot. And I'm not getting, and sometimes people think that, well, anything I say, like, that's law. So I got to be very careful when people are at this heightened level that they're at right now, that unless I know something 100%, I'm not even going to bother with any of it. And quite frankly, there are a lot of 100% we don't know yet because there's no access.
Interesting. Now, I will say the people on your boards that are saying, hold up, wait a minute, those are probably OG podcast listeners. Those are our people. I
would imagine some are, yeah. That would probably stand to reason, wouldn't it?
I would say those are the Carolina people who mess with us. But now, I was going to start with basketball, but now you got me intrigued. Joe and I are both making a face about that. So you're making a face, Joe.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of anything that's analogous to this.
There isn't.
Andrew has covered everything in the triangle as long as I've covered it, if not longer. And, we're all sitting here going, yeah, remember when Butch got here, and Chuck and Marianne Fox. And, again, these are all things that Andrew covered. I'm just sitting here thinking, well, what do we have that he's even close to this?
Coach K, maybe?
No, because they didn't know how to spell his name, and he was from Army.
No, what I'm talking about at the end of Coach K, which Coach K was very, very like the tower, like the literal tower where you needed, I think, an eye scan and a biometric thing and all this other stuff. And Coach K made his video very limited.
The retina to the 5th floor of the Butters building, right?
Right.
Yeah. Mike was always a post-game, I want to talk. And I want to talk about like big picture things. And Mike wanted to, when Mike wanted to talk,
he'd talk.
He would talk.
That's true. No, that's right. That's right.
And their whole, I'm not going to get into the weeds of their recruiting stuff, but they made it known when they got a guy. You didn't have to go fishing for when they got a 5-star guy.
So let's tackle football first, because I was actually going to start with basketball, but with the flow of the conversation, let's go there, Andrew. You have the push and pull of the NFL insiders who will not let the Bill Belichick NFL thing go. And that creates a news cycle that eventually ends with Mike Lombardi either on Twitter or on a podcast telling you, no. He's almost like don't even. This is not a thing. And then Bill shows up to the Carolina game on Saturday against Stanford. And you see some more hirings and things like that. So from your perspective, covering the Tar Heels, is it drips and drabs? Do you got a read as to what's going on with the coaching staff? Do you have a read of what's going on in the portal? What is the messaging coming out of the football office now with Bill Belichick, who's doing a bunch of other things beyond just recruiting right now for Carolina?
The portal stuff has just been the portal stuff. That's been pretty typical because once you start having dialogue with the players, I have found that if a player is interested in the school, they'll talk a lot. So we've gotten a ton of our information from the portal kids, the kids that have committed and that are there on campus. I can say this because I think there are no rules anymore, but there are eyes and ears.
Yeah.
And they have to be, because there's no true liaison to the program. That's why they're making hires and there's no release. There's been no release.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been told they're going to put out a mass release of all of them once the staff is finished.
Okay.
And we have the second signing day. It still exists, right? The first Wednesday in February.
Yeah.
So we're going to get them in a presser
theoretically
on that.
I don't know. The answer to the question I've been given is I don't know.
Or will he be on McAfee that Wednesday? And then maybe they make his son or Lombardi available.
It'll be Lombardi.
I can't wait for the Woj. And to be clear, this is what Coach K did. He's never, when he didn't want to talk.
Yeah,
it was Wojciechowski, Chris Collins, Johnny Dawkins. Pick an assistant.
Jeff Capel,
John Shire.
Yeah.
To be fair,
yeah,
it just didn't happen to be. He doesn't have a son. So I just can't wait for my.
But I covered Duke for a long time until I took this job, and you still could get information.
Yeah.
There was you still knew who to talk to in the Duke program to get information. So you still got access to players.
Always.
I remember going many times. I mean, they would make us wait an hour and a half between players sometimes, but you still got access to players. So you had access to the program. Right now, we have no access to the program. We have to watch Lombardi on Pat McAfee to find out what the hell Lombardi's saying.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Belichick. And I find Lombardi to be more interesting because he can say things, I guess, that Belichick can't say, and is more willing to say things than Belichick probably would care to ever get into. So he's more interesting to me. And because they are rewriting how this is done, he's more the spokesman of the program than Belichick. So it would make sense to have him at some point. We've never talked to him. We've only gotten Belichick once in the introductory press conference, and we each got one question. I mean, I'm holding on to my question to Belichick. Some people said, hey, how's it dealing with Belichick? Well, I don't know.
We don't know.
I asked him a question, and I got a 19-second answer 2 months ago.
And this is why I crack up at everybody who is like, oh, what are you going to do with Belichick at ACC kickoff? You're going to make him drink like an old soda? I'm like, guys, we are not going to see Belichick at ACC kickoff. But that's neither here nor there, because I think what fans would tell you is that it doesn't matter if Belichick is talking to you, Andrew, or if Belichick's talking to us. If he only talks to McAfee, so be it. Go aggregate it and move on with your life. Ultimately, what it comes down to is he putting a staff together that looks like a competent college football coaching staff? Are they getting the horses that you need to compete at the level that the whole reason why you brought Belichick here? Okay. Are you getting the horses in the portal? What does recruiting look like? Joe and I have made this joke, and I'm sure you're probably cracking up too. I mean, wow, look at that. A Carolina football coach going out to the Charlotte area to go get some big defensive linemen. Like you and I could do that if you put on a Carolina quarter zip and represented the university in terms of football. So there's really nothing like extraordinary taking place there. So really it's about the portal at this point, which we know is the name of the game. So what is the snapshot right now with the coaching staff, with the portal? What does Carolina football look like in comparison to who they're trying to hang with, which is a top 15, top 20 college football program?
I can't answer that yet because it's still so mobile to trying to reach a point where they'll show up on the practice field in March at some point. So right now it's just a hodgepodge of stuff. I believe it will come together. I think that Belichick probably sees and Lombardi, they see a method to the madness, but there's a lot of madness. What I will say that I've learned, which is very, very interesting, is their last 3 high school football commits have come from the state of California. And we've talked to those kids, and what they've told us, the pitch is, okay, so it's far away, but if you're going to go to the NFL and you're from Southern California and New England drafts you, you go to New England.
Right.
So they are pitching literally a pro program in the college ranks, a pro organization. So if you want to play in the NFL, you got to play, fly across country and stay here for 3 or 4 years and begin that process now. And it's made a lot of sense with kids. It's resonated with them. They see the world smaller now than they would have maybe previously because Mac had a net from the DC area down to Atlanta. And that's where you recruit. We're going to find our team there. We don't want kids to transfer. Well, kids transfer. You can sign a kid from 5 miles down the road, and if he's not on the field, he's leaving. So kids are going to transfer. Who cares where they're from? If they want to come play and they don't mind flying 4 hours, I don't think it bothers Belichick or Lombardi. And I think that's interesting because what they've done is they've opened up a deeper pool of players. And they're looking for guys that are their kind of guys. And they may not be appealing to a lot of kids once they get past the wow factor. So it makes a lot of sense to me to recruit everywhere. And last Thursday and Friday, they offered a ton of kids from Arizona, from Nevada, from Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, and from Southern California. So
it feels like a slow traditional build, though, Andrew.
I'm sorry?
It feels like a slow traditional build, though, rather than if I had a $20 million budget. I'm going to tell you the first person I would call. And his season ended last night, but the very first person I would call if I was Bill Belichick. If I was Bill Belichick and I won 6 Super Bowls and Rodney Harrison was on most of them and I needed an eraser on defense, Caleb Downs is the very first person I would call today. and I would offer him $3 million to come play football at the University of North Carolina. His brother played there. You might even be able to get him for $2 million. You need real difference makers. The Holy Cross center, not the answer. The Purdue quarterback, not the answer. The slow build, not the answer. I'm slightly confused now that you're pointing out what their strategy is. I'm slightly confused what the money's for if you ain't going to spend it.
I think they've spent some money. You know, the linebacker from Washington cost something. The DB they just got from Washington cost something. But I don't think they're done, and I believe they're going to be very active in the spring portal.
Okay.
Because I think we'll see more kids leave, not just other schools, but I think that they'll evaluate and they'll boot kids out. They've already booted kids out. They booted Criswell out.
Yeah.
So they're going to treat it like a pro organization. They're going to tell kids, you're not good enough here. Go. They're going to have more roster spots to fill. And I think they'll find their quarterback probably in the spring.
Okay.
Because their quarterback's not on campus right now.
Yeah.
There's no way.
That I had the same thought too. It's like there's got to be something else. There's got to be something else. And yes.
So I think a lot of what you've seen is a lot of filling in the cracks.
Yeah. Which is necessary.
Getting a foundation stuff.
Yeah.
And they've slapped numbers on the books where, okay, let's bring in these 6 offensive linemen, and if 2 of them pan out, that's great. And even at corner, they brought a lot of DBs in. They just need 2 or 3 of them to be pretty good. They've got Marcus Allen. They should be able to coach up. And I think that's probably, and I don't know because we're not talking to him, but my read is that. And I think that the money for a quarterback, I think a Caleb Downs is a great, is an interesting name to bring up. And it would make a little sense to make it happen because he would get closer to home for a year, the connection to his brother, and why not make money?
Yeah.
Uncle.
Why not play for Belichick? Exactly. So I think the money's there for a few guys. I know that they paid Dixon from Washington quite a bit. I just don't know the number. But it adds up. They've got 18 guys now. And they still have $3 or $4 million for a quarterback. They offered the Washington State quarterback 3.5. So
I feel like that's a separate conversation. The money being thrown out there for some of these players.
Well, the price of the brick keeps going up.
I know the price of the brick will continue to go up, and we're going to get to
catching up. But what I'm getting at is, if your strategy is let me go find Arizona and California recruits who might be good in 3 years.
If you have him in 3 years,
I mean, who's here in 3 years?
That's true. But part of that's also the staff. The DB coach from Washington, one of the kids that committed from Southern California was probably going to go to Washington to play with this guy.
Yeah.
So Hawkins is his name. He gets the Carolina job, and he's making the same pitch just in Carolina blue.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go from Southern California near San Diego to Seattle, it's not a whole lot longer flight, I guess, to go to Chapel Hill. If you think about it, you can get a direct RDU. So it's a different world some of these kids are living in. And the picture that they're painting is it's another hour on a plane. What's the big deal? But I do think that that's interesting. I think it changes some of the questions that we ask kids than what we used to. When Dina King was covering football recruiting for me, she'd have 6 questions she asked every damn kid.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just try to get a gauge on that. Now there's a lot more follow-up questions because of the things they're being told, because of the off factor. But once these kids get past the off factor, and not all of them talk to Belichick. You know, Freddie Kitchens has been on the road a lot, recruiting a lot of these kids. He's been in Florida and stuff, but he's speaking for Belichick, and he tells them, you will talk to Bill. The ones that do talk to Bill, once they get past the off factor, it's the same kind of decisions that they'll make with anybody else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Can I get to the NFL? And they're talking NFL. They're telling kids that they want to be an NFL pipeline. Those are direct words.
I mean,
direct quotes from kids.
I feel like that's every major college football program.
Yeah, but I think that they feel like they can sell it though, right?
Yeah, I get that, but I push back at that notion because the NFL is quickly, and it's been like this for a while. The NFL is reflective of who they're getting out of college, and the NFL has to adapt to where the talent is coming from. So, yeah. I mean, that's how you end up with a bazillion players coming from Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, and the like. I mean, that's a byproduct of how it works out. They're not looking at it from that perspective.
At the risk of making you answer a question for the North Carolina Board of Trustees and governors, I'm being serious right now. Do you think they looked at this move? And I think they looked at this move as them announcing we're serious about football. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree on that. Even if Bill Belichick's not the coach, the financial commitment is them announcing to the world we're serious about college football.
Yeah.
But don't you think, and give me the names of the guy. I already forgot his name.
Pryor.
Don't you think he looked at Indiana and SMU and said, why the fuck is Indiana and SMU in the college football playoff? And we have the bell and the well and the stone wall, but we're not. We're irrelevant in college football. So what I'm getting at is, if you're going to be a disruptor, which let me speak the language of the 30s, right? I'm going to be a disruptor. You do what I'm saying. You go in and you make a splash. Like this idea that you're some sort of pipeline to the NFL. I will reiterate, Bill Belichick did not even have an NFL roster his last 3 years coaching in the NFL. Look at the skill players that they had. That they were dead effing last in skill. Dead last. So I'm confused as to what the plan is. You know what the best way to do that? Sorry, Andrew.
No, please.
The best way to unconfuse me about the plan is to tell us what your plan is. And maybe you said on McAfee for one instant, we're going to be a pipeline. Cool. That means you're going to be here for 3 to 5 years. Okay, then say that. He said, I didn't come here to leave. I get that. But I'm so confused about what they're supposed to be.
And until he and or Lombardi stand 10 feet in front of a collection of us and field a series of questions and follow-up questions, we're not going to know.
Amen.
We're just going to be able to speculate. And I think speculating, the more you get frustrated, speculation becomes dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think we're at a point now where I'm just relying heavily on what the kids are telling us. And God bless some of these kids for talking up a storm. And then, when they do talk up a storm, you have to take some of it with a grain of salt too. That's why you talk to a lot of them and sort of compare what they're saying. But
but you were doing this.
It appears to be a loose operation over there at the Keenan Football Center.
Mm-hmm.
The structure is not fully in place, and these kids have been in classes for a couple of weeks and they're working out and stuff. So I think it's very interesting because there's a lot of things that need to be tied up, and we're closer to February than we are December.
Oh, I know.
A lot of schools start spring practice in late February, and they don't have spring practice dates yet.
Yeah. There's two push and pulls here too. It's like we can all see the organization, and there's a cadence to these things. And then we also know, at least I'm adamant about this, it's 2025. They don't have to talk to us. But if you at least look like you're doing something, which is the appearances, everything looks a little discombobulated, then yeah, I think it's well within everybody's rights and fair to wonder out loud what's going on. Speaking of what are you, right? Switching over to basketball. It's what?
Let me take a drink because I'm Andrew. I'm fighting two fronts over here, man. I'm exhausted. I'm defending the Tar Heels. I'm defending the Wolfpack in this basketball season.
Yeah,
it's hard, man.
I don't get your sympathizing for Carolina in the grand scheme of things. I think it just comes from a mindset that is not typical of Carolina. But that's neither here nor there. I think there's a central question. I think that adds to everybody's confusion and frustration when it comes to Carolina basketball. It's now year 4 of Hubert Davis. And I have to ask you the question: what is Tar Heel basketball? What is the Hubert Davis Tar Heel basketball identity? It's easy to identify that with Dean Smith. It's easy to identify that with Roy Williams. And in a way, it's very unfair to Hubert Davis to just be like, hey, I knew what Dean was about. I knew what Roy was about. What are you about? But we also know the standard at Carolina that's been built up over time. So what is Hubert Davis Tar Heel basketball right now in year 4?
I'm going to counter what you just said with a question saying, well, why is it unfair? He wears a DES pin in his lapel.
Yeah.
He swears by Dean all the time, sometimes Roy, usually Dean. And this is not a criticism. It's just an observation. From a stylistic standpoint, there's nothing that they do that resembles what Dean and Roy did.
Yeah.
In fact, you just look at the Stanford game. How many baskets did they score on inbound plays on the baseline? Carolina was in man every time. All they did was run a simple curl off a couple of screens, guys wide open. When Roy and Dean went zone in those situations, Hubert won't go zone.
Yeah.
So he talks about it, but there's no resemblance at all. And I don't mean that as a criticism. It's just more an observation. So I don't really know what the North Carolina basketball identity is either, to be honest with you, because it looks like it's still very much a work in progress, sort of a tug of war of trying to be something that has shown sparks of, but it's not consistent. And when you get into crunch time situations, the Carolina that I grew up watching and have covered for a long time, and that you guys have been around for a long time, 90% of the time when they get in a nip and tuck game with 4 minutes left, they're the ones that put foot on throat and win.
Yeah.
And this team doesn't know how to do that. And they look around after each loss and they have the same responses. Well, we didn't do the little things. Drake Powell even said their energy went up and ours didn't match it. So consistently, the other team's energy goes up the last 4 minutes in a dire situation, and Carolina doesn't match it. And 2 of the wins that they've had in these close games, by the way, Marcus Burton misses a wide open layup.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was the block at NC State.
Yep.
Which, by the way, Jalen Washington was not on the floor for the Jalen Blake shot.
Right.
But he was on the floor for the Jaden Taylor shot. So there's some little things like that people nitpick about Hubert, which I think is valid, because I would love to know why Jalen Washington, your only rim protector, was not on the floor in that situation. But I think it's a work in progress for Hubert. He's still trying to figure out who he is as a coach. He's trying to figure out who his players are and how they respond to his approach. I think there are times I think last year's team responded to Hubert's approach well because they were very much plug and play. They could sort of self-police.
Mm-hmm.
Very mature, very smart kids who knew who they were as players. Cormac Ryan knew who he was as a player. Armando knew who he was. Ingram knew who he was. Elliott was figuring things out, but he had the safety valve of RJ having an ACC Player of the Year. Right now, Ian thinks he knows who he is, but he doesn't yet because he's 18, 19. Drake Powell is just he's like that young baby deer still trying to figure everything out, how to run with everybody else. But man, he's impressive when he does it.
Yeah, but here's where I'm going to
RJ's struggling. Ian or Elliott is struggling. They have no interior. It's a totally different animal. So Hubert needs to take on more of a leadership role with this team and be more an enforcer as a coach that we've seen coaches do in the past.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that from him yet.
Here's where I'll push back on the Ian Jackson thing. And I think maybe I should rephrase it in the comparison. We knew what Roy was. We knew what Dean Smith was and all that kind of stuff. I think the issue here that's adding to the existential crisis when we talk about Carolina basketball is that we know what John Shire at Duke is doing. We know what the plan is.
Yeah.
Yes, we can make fun of he's only 17 years old or he's only 18 years old, but nobody had any question as to what this season was supposed to be about, right?
No.
So with Carolina, I still think there's a little bit of with Duke, we understood there was a hard reset. There was no guesswork. We understood there was a line of demarcation. This was Coach K's last year. Now we're going into John Shire's first year. Every recruit knew what was going on. But with Hubert, it's this weird kind of combobulated mishmash of what was and what is. And that push and pull just doesn't seem to be working right now, as opposed to for lack of a better term, a clean break. And there's some comparisons, like Elliott Cadeau's he's probably having a Tyrese Proctor type year. He's having some growing pains as he stuck around, right? But the Ian Jackson thing, there's hey man, this is the freshman we're going to rely on, and we're going to do everything we possibly can to put him in the best position to win. And we've seen that a couple times already at John Shire, specifically now. Whereas at Carolina, there's still this almost antiquated, we're going to move you along, and we still have these, there's like a pecking order that you have to overcome, which was a Roy thing too, by the way, that didn't always work out and cause some problems.
Yeah, it does just kind of, the scent is they're trying to be two things at once.
Yeah.
And I don't think that either are who Hubert is as a coach. And Hubert's still learning very much. And I say he's learning very much, I don't know how much he does learn. There are some coaches who are more in the cave than others. And the deeper you go into the cave, the less you see. And sometimes I get the impression that when Hubert gets in the middle of the season, he is so far into the cave that, and I base this a lot on the responses he gives us to questions, that he doesn't always see everything the way he needs to see. Now, I say young coaches because he's only been a head coach now for 4 years. A lot of them are like that, and they evolve over time. But can North Carolina afford to allow Hubert at 54 years old now to continue to evolve at a pretty sharp curve? Because there is a lot that needs to still develop in his coaching. Mm-hmm. Can they afford to do that and have what would be mediocre seasons? You realize that where they're headed now, last year would be the only season since 2019 that Carolina fans haven't been paying attention to what non-conference opponents did.
Right.
Are doing when they get well into February.
Yeah.
All the other years, they've been on the fence.
Yeah.
That's not North Carolina basketball.
Yeah, North Carolina basketball is, are we in play for a top seed? Right.
Yeah. So
top seed.
Yeah. So
Andrew was saying though, out of since 2019, that's the only time it's been the case. Right. That's a long time for Carolina basketball.
Right? Absolutely. And that was the one team that could self-police itself during this whole period.
So my question is about that runway, right? Joe and I are on the same page when it comes to this. Carolina's going to be they're going to be a tournament team. I think there's the hand wringing as to whether or not they're a tournament team is kind of silly to me because up until the Stanford game, they haven't done anything dumb.
Even that wasn't dumb.
And even that wasn't, to Joe's point, that wasn't dumb. So they're going to be a tournament team, right? But, the context of, well, what happens in the ACC tournament, what happens in the NCAA tournament will come into play. And that growth of Hubert. Do you envision a scenario that we've seen in other situations where you can see some wholesale changes to the staff and putting Hubert Davis in the better position to grow as a coach? Is that Carolina basketball? Can you handle that?
I'm a guy who sees staff changes in football as far more meaningful than staff changes in basketball.
Okay.
And because the roster is smaller, the head coach has so much more say in basketball, and he's the voice that they hear so often. And this is just an opinion. There's nothing to this other than my observation is that I don't see Hubert making that kind of move.
Okay.
Those guys. Hubert is for of his many great qualities, he is intensely loyal.
Yeah.
And I don't see him doing that. He'd say, look, I got to do better as a head coach. He may not tell us that, but I can see him saying that behind the scenes and put the onus on himself. So I don't anticipate that. I think more so better roster composition and hitting in the – look, if Cade Tyson's the guy they thought he would be, and if Jalen Washington was the guy he was at NC State, that they thought they were going to have that guy all year, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
But Cade Tyson has one basket against power conference competition. One. It was a three-pointer at Louisville.
Yeah.
So Hubert is dealing with guys in the what he calls speed dating in the spring for basketball with the portal and not working out. Lang Lubin's been okay. Mm-hmm. Claude was a body just in case. So, they're one of the few teams in college basketball that starts 5 guys that came there as from high school. So the portal's not doing them anything right now. They're trying to win without the portal this year. Basically.
We'll see how it goes with these matchups against Duke, because obviously that can change how we talk about.
Well, there's your
things.
Magic bullet for them.
That's right? Really what it is. That's really what it is.
Because
I think it's the 2 games against Pitt and at Clemson. Well, and I think it's tonight.
There's 2 ways for them to get in. They need to win all the other ones, right? Not all of them, but to your point, the other ones that are on the bubble. Pitt, Clemson, Wake. Or you just get one of the magic bullets. If you get one of the magic bullets, you get in. But what's more likely? I don't know. They're an interesting team to me in the sense that they're so flawed. You have 2 guards that are just anchors on defense. I mean, they are anchors in a bad way. Like you're in a lagoon trying to get to the other side, and you've got anchors tied around your ankles in an anchor bad kind of way. Yeah. Elliot Cadeau is I'm sorry. He's really bad on defense. Mm-hmm. He's a complete and total liability. Mm-hmm. RJ Davis is not much better. Okay? So that's 40% of your starting lineup. I'm not sure there's another way to put this. Yeah. And then for Blakes to dot Trimble, who's your best player, I mean, sometimes you just tip your hat to the guy for making a shot.
It's Blue Devil for life, Joe.
For life. But the roster construction's so bad.
Yeah.
And again, I put this on, as I say, I put it for State on Kevin. That is what I'll put on Hubert, is the construction of this roster. I'll say this for Hubert. We saw this his first year. I do think he can be resourceful. Can they beat Duke? I do believe they can beat Duke because I still feel like they got one of these. Have we seen the best from RJ Davis this year, do you think, Andrew?
No, he's got a thumb issue, and Hubert won't talk about it. Hubert, I asked him yesterday in the conference call, and he said, well, I haven't talked to RJ about it. But his thumb's been wrapped for 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess the best we saw of them was, to me, the Florida second half, because Florida's a really good team.
Yeah.
Karma's going to knock Florida out of the NCAA tournament, but Florida's still a really good basketball team. And maybe that's what I'm looking at, is that second half going, there's still something there.
Yeah, it's a tease.
I agree.
There's
There's
tease.
still something there.
Yeah, there's a tease with Carolina.
After what we saw NC State do last spring, I'm not saying Carolina's going to go on a 9-game heater. I'm just suggesting there's probably a little bit of magic left in that old hat.
If RJ and Ian are going at the same time, they can beat a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
They can beat a lot of people.
You bring up a really interesting point, though, and I know we need to end, but one thing I've always been super impressed about, and I think I'm onto something here. One thing I've always been super impressed about with John Shire is he's gone out of his way to do things his way and not intentionally not be like Mike. Okay. Which is really, 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 really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder with Hubert, and you mentioned the pin. Sometimes you have to do what John's doing and not be like your guy, because that's not who you are.
Right. You got to be you.
But in the case of Hubert, in the case of the template of Carolina basketball, remember that first year he kind of refused to run. They played so slow.
Yeah.
And it was like, it hurt my brain as a state guy looking at them going, why are you playing slow?
They're average.
You're Carolina.
They're average defensively. The boards are terrible.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
They're not creating shots.
Why? But why is this guy who played for Dean and learned basketball from Dean, why is he so slow to take some of those tenets? Roy, while adopted most of those tenets, put his own twist on them. The rebounding emphasis, was kind of Roy's little twist. The playing faster was Roy's little twist.
Yeah.
That's where I'm genuinely confused about Hubert. And what, to your question, what do they want to be? What is their identity? Because remember, when he was hired, it was Carolina fans, with their standard, wanted to get rid of the second big, more pick and roll, run horns, which Roy refused to run, and do more of this ball screen stuff. Yeah. Right. So that they tried and have done some of that. I think that's ultimately what the identity was supposed to be, more of a quote unquote pro style NBA ball screen offense. Right. So I just wonder what is holding him up from embracing, if you will, his inner, it's the bell, it's the well, it's the.
I think it's a great question. And he does run horns sometimes.
He does.
He'll run 8 times in one game, then run it for 2. But yeah, and I'm a big fan of that set, by the way. I can see you are too, but
my favorite.
I don't think that there's an absolute answer to your question. I think we're still figuring that out, and it's year 4. There have been periods where they would be in semi-transition. He would call set play, and he's graduated from that. He doesn't do that anymore. He wants them. He encourages them to run, but they still struggle. And RJ has talked about this. They still struggle that when they try to get in transition and it gets stopped, they have a hard time getting into something after that. And that's where a lot of the bad shots come. That's where a lot of the weird passing angles are. And they're not really sure what to do. And RJ has been open about that for a couple of years, that is one of the areas that they have internal stress, is that when it doesn't work, all of a sudden, oh, crap, there's 22 seconds left on the shot clock, but they act like there's about 6 left and they don't know what to get into. And I think we see that consistently. That's where we see a lot of wasted possessions with this team. So I don't know if that comes from Hubert. I don't know if that's just the makeup of the kids, that they just don't handle those situations well. I don't know, but it's something that we haven't seen improve a whole lot. Now, I will say that Hubert has made some adjustments in recent weeks that have been very positive. Number one, the uber emphasis on you're going to communicate and you're going to rotate defensively, especially down low, or you're not going to play. That's what allowed us to see Jalen Washington emerge. because I think he was playing with all kinds of stuff in his head, and that helped kind of get rid of some of the clutter and simplify his role, and he started playing better. The other thing is we're not seeing nearly as much pounding the ball on the floor and just driving into the lane aimlessly. They're running more sets. They're running more actions. They didn't run a lot of stuff for Ian the other day, which was surprising. They do run a lot for RJ. It'll be interesting to see if they start running stuff for Ian. I think that's the next wave of this team. If they're going to get through these next 6 games in a position to still make the NCAA tournament, they've got to make Ian the priority. He has to be the go-to guy.
Yes.
And I think, and I've talked to RJ about it, and RJ's okay with it. RJ's assists have gone up. RJ's still going to take RJ shots because he has to, and he's told to. But it's okay. He can still get those shots, and Ian get his shots, and the world be fine at North Carolina, because those two, quite frankly, should take 50, 60% of their shots.
You got to let your young guys cook, man. And that's been one of the things that I've been kind of fascinated watching unfold at Carolina. Andrew Jones, Tar Heel Illustrated. Hey, man, we appreciate the time as always. I always feel like we're just up in a press box shooting the shit when we have these conversations, which is always good. So
we've had these conversations for over 20 years. So
yeah, those are the things I try to get to the listeners, because we all know each other for a long time. Some of these conversations, they're really not all that dissimilar to conversations we have in a press room or something like that. So
it's not as many cuss words.
Yeah, that's fair. If you get
I've done a good job here.
No, you do a good job. You do a good job.
Yeah.
But you guys know that when I don't have a mic in front of me, I cuss my head off. So.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right, guys. Thanks.
A true pro.
Big thanks to Andrew. Big thanks to Happy and Hale. Check them out. Locations in the Triangle. I got my home base over in North Hills. I got a spot out in North Raleigh and, of course, Durham. Download the app. Makes it super easy for you to get in and out for your lunch needs or quick dinner pickup. It's all at Happy and Hale. And we're going to take a hockey break in the lightning round. But in the meantime, just hear the jingle and put you in the right mood for that hockey break.
Let's take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hale.
So again, download that app. Use the sign up. You can get all sorts of fun stuff like the free smoothie on your birthday and everything else. And of course, most conveniently, you can pick up your order in and out. Convenience is key. Speaking of hockey, you can head over to the arena and check out Two Roosters. They got multiple locations in the arena, and they got the Slavin Sunday, folks.
No, we're priming the pump for February.
Yeah.
I don't know how I just said that month. February?
What's happening in February?
February 1st is National Eat Ice Cream for Breakfast Day. So February is the cereal month.
Buddy.
Dude.
I got to power through early?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. I will eat ice cream for breakfast on February 1st. Let's make that happen.
It's all February, though. Rotating.
No, we're going to start on February
flavors.
1st. We're going to start on February 1.
Yes.
I will power through on that one.
Do you have a cereal, Jerry Seinfeld, that you like?
Nah, I'm basic. I like Frosted Mini Wheats. I like all the ones that, for lack of a better term, help you poop.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at. I'm sure.
Well,
Jared
this will be a double whammy.
Yeah, it really will be a double whammy. So by all means, put grape nuts. Top it with grape nuts while we're at it. That'll really help me out. Clear out the system. I mean, at that point, I might as well schedule my colonoscopy, which I need to do. So, I'm 45, man. I'm 46. I got to do this now. But anyway, oh man, poor Jared. He's just. What are you guys doing here?
Cereal.
We're getting you hyped for cereal is what we're doing. So go to tworoosters.com.
Who are these people?
Oh, so big thanks to Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. I can tell you with extreme confidence that it's cold outside, which means that you got little critters that want inside the house. For instance, another mouse decided to visit. Like, man, it's cold outside. It is cold outside. So the mouse wanted in the house. It's 17 degrees this morning.
You have 2 cats.
Yeah, I know. Lila is the one that decides to, she's a little sadistic. She just won't straight up kill the mouse. She will chase the mouse all day. And then eventually when she gets bored, she'll take the mouse out. She's sadistic, man.
Okay.
They are God's perfect killing machines, cats.
I know, but if you don't have 2 cats and you do need to get rid of mice,
that's who you call.
Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority, bugsbite.com.
So go ahead, bugsbite.com. Trust me, they'll do a better job than my cats. Lightning round brought to you by Sam Jones. I have some hockey dads that have not had, they're like new to the area. They have not experienced North Carolina barbecue, or they've told me like, yeah, I had barbecue. I'm like, no. Did you go to Sam Jones? No. Then you're doing it wrong. For real, awesome Eastern style North Carolina barbecue, you go to Sam Jones. They got a location in Raleigh. Makes it super easy for you for a lunch meeting, dinner date before you go outside, hang out in downtown Raleigh, obviously in Greenville as well. So we thank them for sponsoring the lightning round. Joe, Freddie is back ahead of schedule. A lot of people were kind of they pinned post Four Nations tournament for his return, and he was in net for Chicago, and they won 4-3, but it was, of course, an adventure to get to 4-3. A lot of people were checked out on the Canes with some bad defensive moments, and they got down early.
I need to set a gambling alarm where I bet on the Canes once overtime starts.
Yeah.
Because they're phenomenal when it comes to overtime.
So the Canes have a nasty habit. This is what I'll say about the Canes, though. The Canes have this nasty habit this year where they do play to the level of their competition. And that's just something that you're just going to have to deal with the rest of the year. Now, on the bright side, if they play to the level of competition, that means when they get to the postseason, Stanley Cup. Who doubts my logic?
Let's see how Freddie holds up. One game back. Good to have him back.
They got Dallas tonight, so he's obviously not going to go back-to-back. But if this is how it's going to go the rest of the way and he stays healthy, it'll be curious to see how Rod, for lessons from last year, approaches this rotation, or if it's a year-to-year thing. He's kind of feeling it. It kind of depends on how Peter Kochetkov has been playing as well. So that's where the Canes are with Freddie Anderson's return. That is good to see. Again, ahead of schedule on that one.
It's a lightning round. It's the lightning round.
We went into a deep dive with Andrew Jones, which I'm glad we did, which kind of took away from some time. We probably have some more time to talk about this tomorrow, but it finally dawned on me that this weekend was the weekend where we're finally over the Kansas City Chiefs. Completely over them.
Now.
Well, it was interesting, and I want to talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, but I don't know if you guys talked about this yesterday, in that I was surprised in the way that Troy Aikman approached some of the calls in that game against Houston, and how everybody is now convinced with this one NFL referee, Patrick Mahomes, is now 7-0. As if a team that's won 2 Super Bowls, well, it's because of the official. That's why they've won these 2 Super Bowls.
They've won 3,
or back-to-back is what I should say. They have won 3, and they're going for their 3rd in a row. So it's interesting to see how everybody is now adamant about the fact that you got to get rid of this whole business of the quarterback getting the benefit of the doubt. And if I hear Tom Brady on this kick, I'm going to throw something at my television, or I'm going to throw my computer out the window, because I get it from Troy's perspective. Troy came up in an era of NFL football where, yeah, man, if I had the kind of rules that Patrick Mahomes had, I might have a longer career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because never forget, Troy Aikman dealt with a lot of concussions. Completely different era of NFL football. But if Tom Brady gets on a kick about this softness in the NFL and protecting the quarterback, like, buddy, the reason why, do you think that your career lasted as long as it did because of you and your water and not eating strawberries and your $300 pajamas? No, dude. You're part of the group of quarterbacks that protected stars, and they changed rules to make sure those stars were protected. Okay. So I'm having a really hard time. Like, what is it about Patrick Mahomes that has everybody finally going, enough is enough? Enough with this protecting of quarterbacks, Joe. Are we officially over it? We're here? I have a theory as to why we're here, but I'm curious.
I was over the Chiefs 3 years ago.
No, I know you. You've been over the Chiefs. Maybe I'm asking the wrong person.
So
no, I think the problem.
I have at least come around on the Chiefs on this front.
Okay,
they have the best defense in the NFL. Well, that's really weird, isn't it? You have an offense that doesn't make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You have a coach who is the best in short yardage and goal line situations, and you have a defense that is the best in the NFL. And wait, they play outside, right?
Yeah.
In mostly low scoring game, mostly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Huh. It's almost like the oldest formula in all of football.
Is that not sexy anymore?
Apparently not, from
that's my theory.
You have all of the factors. You have the Kelsey, Taylor Swift, Mahomes.
Yes.
soap opera, if
Yes.
you will. That's where
The problem with the Chiefs is they're not dominating. The reason
Correct.
why the Chiefs, if the Chiefs were going,
they were,
but they're not dominating.
they used to.
Sure, but that's not because of Tyreek Hill. They're just not. It's not because of him. They're just not. Even Patrick Mahomes has fallen off a little bit, which is natural. Okay, you're not going to be.
Why has he fallen off?
It's not because of freaking Tyreek Hill. Okay, please explain to me the Dolphins. By the way, if it was that simple, you have had some shit takes, bro. You have had some absolute shit takes you won't get over. The Tyreek Hill is one of them, and the snow shit is also another
Love
one.
them both.
But
Love them both.
because the snow thing is like, hi, it's called home field
They're
advantage.
my babies.
Now, all that being said, the problem when we watch the Chiefs is that because they don't beat themselves, it's not impressive to us. You got to go out there and hammer people to make it exciting. But because you're just kind of like this weird methodical, like, why won't you make a mistake? And then you start, well, look at the rest and this and that. It's because it's Taylor Swift and the ratings. And like, no, they just don't beat themselves. And that's part of it. So I salute the Chiefs, man, because you just can't run hot for 5 years in a row. You got to find new ways to do it, especially with the salary cap and everything else. So in a lot of ways, man, I salute the Chiefs on that. Elsewhere in the NFL, looks like Ben Johnson's going to go to Chicago, and suddenly people are having buyer's remorse with Ben Johnson going to Chicago because of the way the game against the Washington Commanders went and some of the play calls that happened in that situation.
I mean, the Jameson Williams pass wasn't great,
Yeah.
but a lot of the other stuff was. I mean, they're my favorite team because of all of the conditions and the way that they play and the way that they scheme things open.
Sure.
And the way that they're aggressive. So you can't be excited when they make an aggressive play and an aggressive call and it works and then fault them when it doesn't.
Yeah, that
That's
makes
just not
sense.
how it works.
That makes sense. Now, speaking of the Commanders, you sent this to me. They back in Washington, everybody showed up with honorary throwback Doug Williams jerseys, right? And I'm not playing sound here because sound doesn't matter, but in the Washington Football Command Center, there's a big wall and it looks like it says anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rest of it says. It just
I
says,
know what it says.
What does it say?
Anybody can podcast on a Monday.
Is that what it says?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't see what anybody, and that's the end of it. But do we need to put that?
Yes.
Do we need to put a big graphic here in the studio that says anybody can podcast on a Monday?
I'm ready to hit up Brian Donnelly, the Donnelly team, Keller Williams, to go and get us a new space just so I can have a giant wall behind me that says anybody can podcast on a Monday.
I love that. I love that. Meanwhile, in Dallas, they don't have a head coach, and the Dallas can always provide on the drama. You got Des Bryant and Michael Parsons going back and forth about the culture in Dallas, and it's all about Jerry Jones and everything else. Never stop being the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody trying to find ways to insert themselves, much like Chris Sims apparently decided to insert himself on this one. I don't have the audio clip. He was on with Kay Adams, the Up and Adams show. And Crimson, I mean, look, everybody's had a thought on the end of the Baltimore Ravens game, right? So we've got the 2-point conversion, which I don't know how much time you spent talking about. We don't know how that game goes, even with the 2-point conversion, because I think there was still, 90 seconds left in that game, right? Because I watched the end of that game in the Extreme Ice Center Tavern, knocking back high lifes. So anyway,
jealous.
It's actually a cool spot. The Extreme Ice Center is actually pretty nice. So this is what he says. This is what Chris Sims says. Lamar Jackson's making $55 million a year. That ball needs to be on time, and it was not accurate. Mark Andrews needs to catch it. Don't get me wrong, but Lamar Jackson's making $55 million a year, and he double clutched it, and he threw it like a dart. I have watched that replay a bazillion times because it won't leave the television. What am I missing? That was an incredibly catchable ball that he bobbled. What am I missing here? Are we so locked in on one of these quarterbacks has to be blamed that you're going to go that length to blame Lamar Jackson? Is that what we're doing? Did I miss? I get it. I was a couple highlights deep when I watched it the first time. Did I miss something? Was that not a catchable ball?
No. Chris Sims, pride of Ramapo, New Jersey, is trying his best to steal the I wasn't that good in the NFL as a quarterback, but I'm going to tell you that this is how to play the position from Dan Orlovsky.
Well, I was just saying,
Orlovsky is a little bit more likable.
you
than
lost
Chris
that
Sims
battle.
is.
I was going to say, you
Yeah.
lost that battle. Orlovsky has the mantle.
Yeah. So I don't
Because
get it.
Orlovsky has an interesting sense of humor, at least.
I don't get it. He has a jihad, I think, against Lamar Jackson, and he's had one for a long time.
Yeah, that's absolutely brutal. We are now into the conference championships. Those are set. Some folks want to keep riding that hot hand as it relates to Washington. Maybe you are going to double down on the Chiefs. I don't know. Or you could be like my brother's buddy who wants to know if the Philadelphia Eagles are still frauds in our opinions as they move on. I'm kind of worried about Jalen Hurts and his health, but that's neither here nor there. Nick Sirianni might be on that Ryan Day, by the way. That would be funny. Because remember, much like Ryan Day was as good as gone after the loss to Michigan, Nick Sirianni went through it earlier this year.
And then they figured out they had Saquon Barkley on the team. So, hey, I give him credit.
How about that? So maybe you want to feel strongly about football teams that understand who they are and go about taking care of their business. This is why the Chiefs are usually ahead of that. Now, maybe you don't want to look for futures for the teams themselves. Maybe you're just looking for things like touchdowns. Well, guess what? Our friends at DraftKings have you covered when it comes to that. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use the promo code OG24. You use the promo code OG24. Guess what's going to happen? You are going to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Much like I put $5 down on NC State to win the ACC tournament.
I heard that.
$5 gang stand up. But maybe you want to just keep it simple. And if you're ready to place your first bet, try betting something as simple as a touchdown. Anytime touchdowns. So go to DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use that promo code OG24. New customers get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
Big thanks to our friends at Homefield. Homefieldapparel.com is the website. Use the promo code OG24 if you haven't already to get a fleece line hoodie, sweatpants. But man, it's cold outside. You want to stay warm? These hoodies are undefeated.
Dimitri was head to toe home field yesterday.
I saw that. He has Alabama on.
He could probably get one that says, Nick Saban, get over yourself. Nick Saban went 12-5 against Auburn, by the way, never lost consecutive games to Auburn. So come on, man. It's apples and orangutans. You're not comparing the same things here.
Yes, it's a little bit different. But much like the home field fleece line hoodies are built different. They have absolutely been clutch all hockey season for me, and they'll keep you warm throughout basketball season. So head on over to Homefield Apparel. Use that promo code OG24. Butcher's Market, they bring you the mailbag on Fridays. They bring you OG Live, and they bring you delicious ham biscuits.
They have catering too.
Mm-hmm.
Our friends from the Butcher's Market, they help us with not only our OG Live on Thursdays, but they do the mailbag on Fridays. So next Friday, Joe, we're going to have a catering specialist come up here from the Butcher's Market.
Exciting.
To tell us more about their options. And Kenneth was like, hey, maybe I'll bring you some food just to give you guys an idea. We'll do like a video. And I was like, I want to give you a better space to go to than the studio because I want to present it in a way.
Okay.
So I'm working on one potential idea for how to make that work.
Okay.
But if you would like to impress your work folk and the people that you spend your time with, well, hit up the catering options at the Butcher's Market. It's thebutchersmarkets.com. And
after you eat all the delicious meals that come prepared or the catering event, go to our friends at O2 Fitness. It's more than a gym. O2fitnessclubs.com.
O2 Fitness, so much more than a gym.
With O2fitnessclubs.com, the gym, obviously the key thing. Great locations, great staff, great equipment. That's key to any fitness club. But Goes beyond that. You got Renew Physiotherapy, Loop Nutrition, all these things tie together to make sure that your 2025, you get started on a full body transformation, just living better. It might not just be in terms of a little bit less on the waistline. It's just about feeling better, having energy, eating better, all those things that come with full body wellness.
Making good choices and having someone help you make good choices. That's what O2 Fitness is about.
So check them out online at o2fitnessclubs.com. You got crud. I got crud. We all got crud, man. It's brutal right now. I'm in a neti pot when I get home. Let's go to the YouTube comments from Dave. You guys are idiots. Football games should be played in the snow. You're getting roasted on TikTok, bro.
I really don't care.
I feel like they should ban TikTok in the US again so that you don't get roasted on TikTok.
Really don't care.
From Taylor. No one forgets March. That's why people are mad. You go from that to back to the bottom of the conference. Keats signed the players. Keats coaches the players. It has been a total failure. Those 9 games are an outlier, and the fans want a team who wins games they should and upset a few others and be in discussion most of the time. Time will tell if Keats can provide that. As of right now, I don't know how anyone would think he could deliver in terms of.
We almost made it through the whole program without a Keats.
I'm just going through the
Wolfpack
YouTube.
take.
Just going through the YouTube.
Almost.
Let's see. From John, I got steak and eggs scrambled, hash browns covered. Waffle House has the best hash browns in the business. Did I miss something?
The Dimitri radio
I missed that.
nonsense.
I have not heard that segment
was all Waffle House.
Oh, okay, man. He was really in his SEC bag yesterday, wasn't he? Goodness gracious. From Connor, the conversation difference between Hurts and Allen is just terrible nationally. Hurts does everything he needs to do to win games. At times that's passing, at times it's running, at times literally just don't give the ball away. But his best skill is knowing what he needs to do to win games. # Go Birds. I have a question about Go Birds in a second. I mean, you understand why there's a difference between Allen and Jalen Hurts, right? In the same way that we talk about Lamar Jackson differently than Josh Allen, right? I mean, it's right there. Y'all see it, right? Y'all see it.
I didn't cough at all yesterday, by the way.
It's my fault.
It is your fault.
# Go Birds. By the way, is it stolen valor if I see somebody wearing Eagle stuff and I just go Birds? I just want the response. I'm not pulling for the Eagles. I just go, hey, go Birds. And then, yeah, go Birds. Is that stolen valor?
No. Hit this golden fisher, though, please.
Let's see.
Flasher.
I get that you hate Duke, but to think there's another option for player of the year, farming for views, you dumb as hell. What did you say yesterday?
I said that Martin Reynaud might 3 times, might actually be the player of the year in the ACC. Might be. And the Cooper Flagg hit a hive, unhinged.
What the fuck
unhinged.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Nothing wrong with me. Oh, yeah, it's wild, Joe, that the guy who leads the ACC in scoring and rebounding might 3 times be the best player in the ACC.
Okay,
that's wild. That's such a wild concept.
This is such a foregone conclusion. I don't even know why we're having the conversation.
I'm not saying who is going to be the ACC player of the year. I never said that.
Yeah,
I said
might
be.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
People just didn't leave it in the YouTube comment section, Joe. They called the sports phone from an 828.
Hey, Joe. Heard your show today, Joe. Heard you slurping all the Carolina fans. Tell them all the skies that fall and you'll still make the tournament. Then, the next segment. You talk about how Duke isn't, quote, a monster, unquote, despite the fact they're in the top 3 of offensive and defensive efficiency. Why? Because you bring up the 2 losses. One to Kansas, one to Kentucky. Both on neutral courts. That's the one thing you're right about. They're on neutral courts. Did you mention those? They were both combined by a total of 3 possessions? Really? And of course, you don't acknowledge or take into consideration the fact that it's 2 months later. The team is playing much better. Much better. The freshmen have grown exponentially. And this is an entirely new team from what you saw. But no, your Duke bias is showing once again, and you will not give them any credit, will you? Well, fuck you, and fuck you thinking Wake's going to beat Duke, because it's not going to happen.
That was a very emphatic fuck you.
I'm curious, man. Hey, did they play the NCAA tournament at Cameron Indoor Village?
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah.
Stadium? Did they? Oh, they don't?
No, they don't.
Oh, that's
They
weird.
don't. They
That's
don't.
weird.
He actually
weird.
called twice.
Oh, cool.
That was from Monday. And then they called, this person called on Sunday at 12:33.
You know, fellas, you'd think by now that all these other schools would get it, but I'm very glad they haven't gotten it. You see, Cooper Flagg is good enough, but when you make this man mad and when you piss him off, he takes it to yet another level. Thank you, Boston College, for being complete fucking idiots. Oh, and by the way, like Jalen Blake says, it's go to hell, Carolina, forever. Go Duke!
Speaking of your Deeks, who you got tonight? Who you got tonight? Are you ready for tomorrow's show if Wake Forest wins? Look, I've been saying that the OG Sports Phone is a safe space for Carolina fans too. I think it's not just pack therapy. Carolina fans, man, OG Sports Phone's for you too. The OG Sports Phone is for the entirety of the triangle. Actually, it's for the entirety of the North Carolina.
Wake at night.
9 o'clock.
Primed.
9 o'clock.
With those guards.
What do you think?
Oh, I know what I'll do. I got it.
What's that?
Hunter Salas is better than RJ Davis. And add water, sprinkle. Voila.
There's a show, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.